Ugh. Oh, brother. How ridiculous can you get? I'm watching this old 80s horror movie. It's called Bloodbath at Spring Break Beach. And Lord, let me tell you, I've seen some really stupid characters in horror movies, but these particular people take the cake. I'm serious. They hit almost every checkmark of the dumb horror movie character trope list. Seriously, what was with people in the 1980s and their complete lack of common sense when it came to horror movies? It's like they actively wanted to get themselves killed. I mean, how many times do you have to see a slasher movie before you realize that, for example, going into the woods alone at night is a terrible idea? And yet, every single character in these movies seems to think it's a great idea to go wandering off by themselves. And don't even get me started on the people who decide to split up when they're being hunted by a killer. Oh, you go that way, and I'll go this way. Are you kidding me? How about you both stick together and have a better chance of surviving? And why does nobody ever think to just call the police? I mean, sure, sometimes the phone lines get cut, but it seems like half the time they don't even try. And what's with all the tripping and falling? I get that it's supposed to add tension, but come on. You're being chased by a killer and you can't even stay on your feet? It's like they're actively trying to make things harder for themselves. And let's not forget about the dumb decisions they make. Oh, there's a noise in the basement. Let's go check it out. Yeah, because that's a great idea. And what's with the people who decide to have sex in the middle of a horror movie? Do they not realize they're just asking to be killed? It's like they think they're invisible or something. Look, I love horror movies just as much as the next person, but I can't help but roll my eyes at the stupidity of the characters in these 1980s slasher movies. It's like they're just begging, asking to get killed by the killers in these movies. I just hope that if I ever find myself in a horror movie scenario, I'll have the common sense to make better decisions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I just heard a knock at my door. I'll be right back. Ah, the grocery store. A place of wonder, of mystery, of infinite possibility. As I walked through those automatic sliding doors, I felt a sense of excitement and trepidation wash over me like a wave of molten gold. The produce section greeted me with its kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, each vegetable a miniature work of art. The tomatoes, round and red, like miniature suns, seemed to pulsate with a secret energy. The lettuce leaves, delicate and green, whispered softly to each other in a language only they could understand. But it was the bananas that truly captured my heart. So curved, so yellow, so phallic. I couldn't help but stare at them for a moment, contemplating the mysteries of the universe. Moving on, I found myself in the dairy section. Ah, milk, the white liquid of life. As I gazed upon the various brands and types, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Which one was the right one? Which one held the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe? I decided to move on, my mind still reeling from the dairy section. I found myself in the cereal aisle, a vast expanse of cardboard boxes and sugary delights. The colors, the shapes, the promises of a better tomorrow. It was almost too much to bear. But then I saw it. The one box that stood out from all the rest. The one that promised not just a better tomorrow, but a better life. It was called David Lynch's cereal. It had my name on it. Literally, I had written my name on the box in a fit of egomaniacal fervor. I grabbed the box, feeling a sense of triumph wash over me. This was it. This was the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. I made my way to the checkout, feeling like a conqueror who had just vanquished a horde of demons. As I paid for my purchases and made my way back out into the sunlight, I knew that I had just experienced something truly special, something magical, something Lynchian. Maybe I ought to make Eraserhead 2 take place entirely in a ShopRite. Yeah, that's the ticket. That could work out just fine. I might be putting myself in a lot of danger by talking about this. But honestly, I think it needs to be said. My name is Harold, and I work for a man who I'm pretty sure is a vampire. I know. You're probably thinking I've been watching too much Twilight or Dracula movies or something like that, but I'm serious. At first, I was willing to listen to people who said, "Now, Harold, you're pulling our legs, aren't you?" But the more I observed my boss, the more I began to realize I might not be so crazy after all, might not be so off base. For starters, if I were to show you my boss upon very first glance, it's pretty obvious of what he is. He's pale, he never comes out during the day, and he's always wearing a cape. I mean it. The man's skin is as light as snow. I don't think he's ever tanned in his entire life. And in the almost year I've worked for my company, I've only seen my boss at night, whether it be for social events, late night office work, or just in general. If the sun's out, the man is not there. And as for the cape, I mean, I chalked it up at first to him either wanting to look very dapper or that he was a community theater actor. But no, I've never seen him in an advertisement for a show, and neither have my friends. And that's not all. One night, when we all went out to a bar after work, my coworkers and I asked my boss if I could buy him a drink. And he said yes. So I said, "Well, boss, what kind of a beer do you want to drink?" And do you know what he said to me? He looked me dead in the eyes and he said, "No, no, Harold, not beer. Wine, please. Red wine." Now, I was willing to overlook this as people have the right to drink wine over beer. But then, a few weeks later, I caught him drinking red liquid from a goblet in his office. I asked him what it was, and he just smiled at me and said, "Don't worry about it, Harold. It's just cranberry juice." Yeah, right. Another thing I've noticed about him is how he never eats anything except for rare steak. I mean, who eats that much red meat? I like a nice steak as much as the next guy, but bloody, rare steaks all the time? It's sketchy as hell, if you ask me. But But I think the most telling thing was when I walked into his office during one of our late nights and found him sleeping in a coffin. A coffin, people. Who does that? He swore to me it was just something I use for my bad back, Harold. That's all. But hey, that's what we have foam mattresses and pillows for, buddy. Look, I'm not saying that he's going to turn into a bat or anything, but I'm pretty sure he's not a regular human being. I'm just waiting for him to invite me to his castle so I can bring a bag of garlic with me and put a stake through his heart. I mean, maybe it's all just a gigantic coincidence, right? Maybe I am being a bit silly. I mean, part of me wants to confront him, but I really do love my job, and I don't want to risk getting fired for some scenario that might only exist in my head. So, for now, I'm just going to keep my head down and work hard. But I swear, if I see him pass a mirror and he has no reflection, I'm going on a job hunt the next day. I've always said, no matter who you are, man or woman, old or young, getting your first kiss is a big deal. No matter what some people might say. But getting your first kiss at a boy girl party when you're 11 years old is a whole other story. It's exactly what happened to me. It's my first kiss story. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had been invited to a party at my friend Beth's house, and I was pretty nervous because it was my first boy girl party. I had never been around so many girls before, and I didn't really know how to act. I know it seems silly, but at the time, it was a pretty big deal. Most of the parties I had been to before that were either all boys' parties, or the girls there were my sister or cousins. It was never the girls from my school or neighborhood. And yet, here they all were. So, there I was, standing awkwardly by the snack table when I saw her. She was beautiful. Curly red hair and the most sparkling green eyes I had ever seen. Her name was Sarah. She was a classmate of mine at school, and this was the first time I had seen her outside of the classroom. And to say I was smitten at first sight would be an understatement. I tried to play it cool and act like I wasn't interested, but I think she could tell. She kept looking over at me and smiling, which made my heart race. Later on in the evening, after the happy birthday song, after the cake, after my friend opened her presents, a group of about 6 or 7 kids, myself and Sarah included, broke off and went into a quieter corner of the basement where we were having the party. We all decided, for reasons I can't quite remember, to play Truth or Dare. It was a pretty harmless game, to be honest. Most of the kids either got asked easy softball questions for truth, or got really innocent dares like, I dare you to burp the alphabet. Finally, it came time for my turn. I randomly chose dare, and the girls with Sarah all giggled and conferred with one another before one of the girls turned to me and, trying hard to hide her excitement, said, I dare you to kiss Sarah on the lips. Well, I was equal parts excited and very nervous. I had never kissed a girl before, and here I was, seconds away from doing it for the very first time. Well, few of my friends were watching me and snickering, so I tried to play the Fonz card and just went, Okay, sure, cool, I'll do it. So, mustering up all the courage I had, I puckered my lips out, leaned in slowly, and just stopped about halfway to Sarah. I froze in my spot, way too petrified to continue. Well, between my friends snickering and the girls being all giggly and whispering, I was starting to panic, starting to get mortified. Here I was being asked to kiss a girl, and I was chickening out. I was sure I'd have to leave the party with my tail between my legs. Well, thankfully, Sarah, the kind soul that she was, just calmly walked over to me, took my hand in hers, and sweetly said, "Here, I'll assist," and gave me a quick kiss. It was a split-second peck on the lips, but it felt like an eternity. I remember feeling like my whole body was on fire. I barely registered the squeals of delight from the girls and the hoots and laughter from the boys who saw it happen. After that, I felt like the king of the world. I had finally had my first kiss, and it was the most beautiful girl at the party who gave it to me. Of course, I didn't tell anyone at school about it because I didn't want to seem like some kind of bragging creep. But let's just say that word got around school pretty quickly, and the boys all crowned me the king for a short while. I played it off as being humble and a bit embarrassed, but secretly, I was really proud of myself. As for Sarah, well, fortunately, it turns out she didn't quite like me the way I liked her. But she was a very good sport about it. We talked that weekend, and she said that she still thought I was very sweet and still wanted to be my friend. And she was glad that her first kiss was with me, and not one of the other, as she called them, knucklehead caveman boys in school. I admit, I was disappointed things didn't blossom into something more, but I understood, even at that age, that those kind of romantic feelings are a two-way street. So, friends is what we remained. Looking back on it now, it's a pretty funny memory, but at the same time, it was the most important thing in the world to me. And I'll always remember Sarah as the girl who gave me my first kiss. I remember the day vividly, even though it was many years ago. It was a typical Saturday morning in our small town. My notoriously cheap father was out running errands, and I had tagged along with him to help. I was only 8 years old at the time, but even then I knew he had a reputation for being frugal to a fault, always looking for a bargain and never spending money unnecessarily. As we walked down the main street, my father noticed a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign asking for help. As we walked past, I could hear the man wearily croak out, "Spare some change, mister." My father's initial reaction was to keep walking, to ignore the man and pretend he didn't exist. But at that moment, something compelled him to stop, to take a closer look. He stood there for a moment, watching the man as he stood up, struggling to keep warm in the chilly autumn air. And then, without warning, my father reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. Without any hesitation, he pulled out five $20 bills and put them into the hand of the surprised man. $100. I had never seen my father shell out this kind of money before. He handed it to the man without saying a word, and even the man seemed surprised at what was happening. Are, are you sure, mister? My father just nodded as he took my hand and proceeded down the street, seemingly so lost in thought that he didn't seem to acknowledge or even hear the homeless man call out, "Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir." I couldn't believe what I had just seen. It seemed so out of character for him to give away money like that, especially to someone he didn't even know. But as I thought about it more, I realized that maybe it wasn't so surprising after all. My father was always so focused on saving money and making sure we had everything we needed. But I think deep down he understood what it was like to struggle. He grew up during the Great Depression and he knew what it was like to go without. Maybe in that moment, he saw a little bit of himself in that homeless man. Whatever the reason, that small act of kindness stayed with me for years. It showed me that even the most unlikely people can surprise us, and that there's always a little bit of good in everyone, even if we don't always see it right away. And while my father may have been notoriously cheap, he also had a heart of gold when it mattered the most. Before I even begin to tell you what's on my mind, let me just start off by saying that I am not a violent person. A peaceful soul, really. One of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet. But when it comes to soccer matches, I turn into a bit of an excitable fellow. A hooligan, if you will. I mean, who can blame me? It's all those damn emotions and adrenaline rushing through my veins. Now, some might say that I'm just looking for trouble when I go to the games. But let me tell you, it's not like that at all. I just have a lot of pent up energy that needs to be released, and if that means throwing a punch or two, then so be it. I don't go looking for fights, honest I don't. I mean, there was that one time that I crashed into the support section of an opposing team, throwing cans of Guinness at the lot of them. But it was just harmless fun. There was only a few bumps and bruises to be had, and that one bloke assured me he had a good dentist when I smashed his face in. So what's the big deal? I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes you just have to defend your team's honour, am I right? I mean, if some bloke in the stand starts talking trash about my team, you better believe I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. And my fists if necessary. Plus, it's all in good fun, isn't it? I mean, what's a football match without a bit of friendly banter and a few scuffles? For example, I went to the match last week with my mates, Danny and Riley, and this bloke who supported the other team, he pointed right at me, directly at me, and said, "Your team is a bunch of wankers." And yet I was the one the Bobbies wanted to escort out of the stadium. I mean, for goodness sake, all I did was one measly headbutt. It's not like I killed the bastard. I mean, he did have a broken nose that was gushing blood everywhere, but hey, it's all part of the experience, really. And hey, if someone gets hurt in the process, that's just collateral damage. It's not like I meant to hurt them or anything. So really, I don't see what the big deal is. I'm just a passionate fan who happens to get a bit carried away sometimes. And if that means picking a fight with some unsuspecting bloke, well, that's just the way it goes. So, let's all raise a pint to football, the beautiful game, and the hooligans who make it just a little bit more interesting. Cheers! Hi, folks. Tom Waits here. I was sitting in a McDonald's the other day, trying to figure out what was more questionable, the food or the characters lurking in the corner. And let me tell you, it was a tough call. I mean, have you ever really looked at a Big Mac? It's like someone took a cow, smashed it between two buns, and then sprinkled some lettuce on top to make it look healthy. And don't even get me started on the McRib. I don't know what kind of animal that thing comes from, but it's definitely not found in nature. But you know what they say, you can't judge a book by its cover. Or in this case, a burger by its questionable origin. Because let's be honest, when you're in the mood for some fast food, you're not exactly looking for gourmet cuisine. You're looking for something that tastes like regret and is easily accessible at 2 a.m. And McDonald's delivers on both those fronts. You can practically taste the regret in every bite. It's like a guilt sandwich. But at least you know what you're getting. And in a world of constant uncertainty, that's something to be grateful for. Plus, there's something to be said for the consistency of McDonald's food. You know exactly what you're going to get every time you order. It's like a warm, greasy hug from an old friend. And in this crazy, mixed up world, we can all use a little consistency. So, while I may not be able to tell you what's in a McChicken, or how they make those French fries so addictively delicious, I can tell you this. McDonald's is the great equalizer. It's where the rich and poor, the young and old, the healthy and unhealthy, can all come together and bond over their love of questionable food. So, let's raise a stale, lukewarm soda to McDonald's, the restaurant that reminds us all that sometimes it's okay to just say, screw it, and indulge in a little regret. After all, we're only human. And sometimes we need a little grease to remind us of that. Gotta rest his old weary bones for a second. This park bench will do just nicely. You know, it's not as easy to get around at my age like it was when I was younger. And I suppose I ought to be thankful that I'm still able to take a walk in the park at the age of 80. Most other young folks my age can barely get out of the house. Sure is peaceful out here. One thing I like to do more than anything is watch. Nature and people watch. You know, if you see the most interesting things and the most interesting people when you relax and just watch. In fact, here comes something adorable now. Oh, look at those two. That boy and girl there, holding hands and happily looking into one another's eyes as if they were the only two people in the world. They can't be more than 11 or 12 years of age. Young love. It sure is a nice sight to see. You know, come to think of it, it reminds me of when I first met my wife. We were both just 12 years old. Huh, she had a smile that could melt the iciest heart, and just such a wonderful, demure sweetness about her. All I could remember thinking, from the moment I laid eyes on her, at the county fair that came through our town every summer, was that she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen, and that someday, I was going to marry that girl. So there I was, at that county fair, trying to win a stuffed animal at one of the games, when I saw her. She was standing nearby, watching me with a smile on her face. I couldn't help but feel a little shy around her. Part of me almost completely lost my nerve from going over to say hello to her. But something deep down inside just nagged at me, saying, "You big dope, go over to that beautiful girl and say hi. This might be the only chance you have. If you don't say hello to her, some other fellow will swoop in and do it." So that's just what I did. We started talking, and in that short amount of time, I realized she liked the same kind of things that I did. She liked hiking through the woods. I liked hiking through the woods. She acted in a few local theater groups, and so did I. She enjoyed baseball, and so did I. I couldn't believe it. Well, we ended up spending the whole day together, going on rides and eating cotton candy and popcorn. By the end of the day, I knew I had fallen in love with her. I walked her home that evening, and gathering up my courage, I asked her if she'd like to go on an official first date with me. And she said yes. Ha ha! I felt like the luckiest fella in the whole darn town. Well, that first date turned into a second, and a third, and a fourth. And pretty soon I asked her if she wanted to go steady with me. And you know what? She said yes to that too. We stayed together all through school. And even when I went off to war, I wrote to her almost every day. And she wrote back just as much. I still remember the day I came home and saw her waiting for me at the train station. She looked just as beautiful as the day I met her. And I knew then that I never wanted to be without her. So, a few days later, I went to the nearest jewelry shop with some money my grandfather and father loaned me, got the most beautiful engagement ring I could find, went to her house, got on one knee, and proposed to her. And what do you know? She said yes to me again. Well, after crying and hugging me, of course. uh, we've been together for over 60 years now, and I still feel the same way I did when I first met her. Seeing those young people in the park reminded me of how lucky I am to have found my soulmate so early in life. Love is a beautiful thing, and I hope those young people in the park hold on to it forever. Because when you find someone who loves you for who you are, there's nothing more special in the world. I can tell you that much, Jack. This is one of those instances where I couldn't really script this out because I don't think it would do my grandfather justice. It's it's been 2 years And yet, every day, the pain still lingers. My grandfather, Anthony Posio, passed away in 2021. I I always looked up to him as the patriarch of our family. He really was a very larger than life individual. If my dad was like a superhero to me, my grandfather was just like that wizened old sage. I felt like I could go to him for anything. He he had this way about him where no matter how bad of a day I was having, he knew just what to say, had just the right demeanor, the calmness to be able to understand what I was going through and make me feel better. For a long while, I lived right next door to him, and it was always a pleasure to be able to realize that I can just go right to his back door and knock on it, and he'd let me right in, and we would talk about anything really. Talk about sports and did you see the way the Giants are playing? How terrible, right? Or how about them Mets, huh? You think this is going to be the year they go all the way? I don't know, Grandpa. I guess it depends on how good the team is. I mean, I was never really a baseball fan, but for him, I would talk about it. And we would just talk about the world in general. He would always impart on me the wisdom of no matter what people are like, you got to do good by them. Even if they upset you, even if you don't agree with them, always be kind. Always be true to yourself, too. He taught me that in a lot of ways. Just thinking back to all the great memories we had together, how he would call me up and say, "Hey, babe, can you do me a favor? Can you play my lotto numbers for me?" Or just, you know, seeing him puttering around in the backyard, wearing those long khaki pants and that Kangol hat of his, and I would just go out there and watch him. And anytime I would see him, it was like watching a master at work, especially when he would be working on his pool. And I would always go over and say, "Hey, Gramps, you want me to help you with that?" "Nah, nah, babe, I got it, I got it. Besides, I'm the only one who's able to do it properly." Yeah, that's right, Grandpa, you really are. So, yeah, 2 years, Gramps. Where's the time gone, partner? I really don't know. What I do know is I know you're in a better place now with Nan. You guys were apart for a long time when she passed away, and I know you never you never really recovered from that. You were never the same. But you did, you found the strength. You found the inner strength to keep going, to be that rock for us, to be the patriarch of our family. That's about it. When you left, a small piece of me left too. And in all honesty, it's not something that can come back so easily, but I'm I'll be okay eventually. Like I said, the pain never really goes away. You just accept it a little more day by day. And you think of the good times, the happy moments. And I know that's what you would want me to do. You always encourage me to be the best person I can be, whether it was in my job or with my theater obligations. And I always remember how proud you were of me for my doing my theater shows. And I can only wish that you can be here listening to this. Though, in a way, I guess you really are listening, just somewhere else. Well, it is getting late. I might as well get going, Gramps. You you need anything before I go? No. Need me to play the lotto for you? Go to the store for you? No? Alright. Well, Gramps, I'll talk to you later. Alright? And I love you. And I miss you too. Goodbye, partner.